Welcome to the Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour is President Trump considering yanking FIFA from Seattle. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
It is very clear to me that almost nobody read the James Comey indictment. Would you like to know how I know this? Today, I was having a little tiff, an argument with somebody in the newsroom about the Comey situation, and I said, "Did you read the indictment?" And they said something, and then I said, "Did you read the indictment?" And the answer came out eventually, no. Am I basing it on this one person? No, of course not. I am basing this on every single clip I saw on the news today of the mainstream media. None of them read it. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Ari, these things are dozens and dozens and dozens of pages long with tons of details. Well, worst case scenario, plug the thing into ChatGPT, let it highlight the details for you, and get the Cliff Notes. That would be understandable if the thing was dozens and dozens and dozens of pages long. Once you remove the legal jargon of United States of America versus James B. Comey, case number, blah, 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 docket number, blah, 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 this thing is barely 1 page long. Took me a grand total of 1 minute and 30 seconds to read the whole thing. That's it. Now, this is actually bad for the Trump administration. Whoever filed this thing, and let's not forget, Donald Trump fired the person who he wanted to bring this case and replaced them with somebody else who's not very experienced. This does not look like somebody who knows what they are doing because it doesn't look like it has as many details as these cases usually do. For the last almost 5 years we've had this show for, I have read many, many, many indictments. And they are significantly more detailed than this one. Now, if the guy said one thing one time, yeah, it's going to be a real short indictment. But at the same time, this is very sparse, even for that. But the fact that the mainstream media didn't even bother reading it, just got their talking points and went out with them, and their talking points are stupid, real stupid. If you want to claim this is a political prosecution, then you have a little problem. Do you know what one of the most famous pictures probably of the 21st century was up until the attempted assassination of Donald Trump? It was his mugshot picture because the guy was indicted so many times by so many different government agencies because they were trying to take him down. So if you want to talk about political prosecution, you guys open this can of worms. Then you went after everybody in his cabinet. And look, I am no fan of Steve Bannon. But you put Steve Bannon in jail for a lot less than you got Comey on. You want to talk about political prosecution? You guys started this mess. Now, what is this really about? Question is, did James Comey make false statements to Congress? That's question number one. Question number two, did he obstruct a congressional proceeding by doing that? Did he leak information? Probably. Did he leak information to the media on all this? Probably. We don't know that for a fact. And apparently there are two witnesses who are in his inner circle that are what the government is basing its case on. What is the lie that he told? Let's do a little flashback for you.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle. They did it with purpose. They did it with sophistication. They did it with overwhelming technical efforts. And it was an active measures campaign driven from the top of that government. There is no fuzz on that. It is a high confidence judgment of the entire intelligence community. And the members of this committee have seen the intelligence. It's not a close call. That happened. That's about as unfake as you can possibly get and is very, very serious, which is why it's so refreshing to see a bipartisan focus on that, because this is about America, not about any particular party.
So that was a hostile act by the Russian government against this country.
Yes, sir.
In that time frame, there were more than the DNC and the DCCC that were targets.
Correct. There was a massive effort to target government and non-governmental, near-governmental agencies like nonprofits.
What would be the estimate of how many entities out there the Russians specifically targeted in that time frame?
It's hundreds. I suppose it could be more than 1,000, but it's at least hundreds.
I have a neighbor. It's Seattle. Of course, I have a neighbor who's super liberal. I have a neighbor down the street from me who is super, super liberal. Whatever the cause du jour is, they have a flag of. Whoever's running for office, they have a sign of. One of their kids has a car they drive around, which has a bumper sticker on it, which has a picture of Donald Trump that says, "From Russia with love." People believe this whole Russian collusion thing because you had people like Adam Schiff, James Comey, you had Adam Schiff, and all the Democrats repeating the lie, repeating the lie, repeating the lie. But then, when Kash Patel takes over the FBI, what do they find? Burn bags. Burn bags filled with stuff showing that there was nothing to this. You know, the FBI has one policy that I agree with, which is we don't comment on ongoing investigations. Do you know why that is? Because you can smear somebody just by saying there is an investigation, and people will believe it forever. Case in point, all the Epstein stuff. Alan Dershowitz's name is leaked in the flight logs because he went there for whatever reason. He had to exonerate himself, and to this day, people still say, Alan Dershowitz, Jeffrey Epstein, whatever, even though he has exonerated himself. Sometimes the accusation is worse than the crime. Now, there are many, many, many times James Comey said things to Congress that were allegedly untrue. And there's a lot of evidence to back that up. At the end of the day, you want to call this a political prosecution? Yeah, you know what? It probably is. It probably is. But that's where we're at now, because we just spent the last 4 years of the Democrats doing political prosecutions against Republicans. That is what the new par is. That is what the new standard is. And the reality is, if Donald Trump hadn't won the election, Democrats probably would have sent him to jail for the rest of his life with nothing to go on other than the fact that they didn't like him. Remember what the Democrats were saying at the time?
No one is above the law.
Nobody's above the law.
No person is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
You're not above the law. You're not an elite. You're not untouchable. And so it's nice to see that the rule of law has returned.
Okay, let's be real about this, guys. This is political, just like everything against Donald Trump was political. Now, if you say, okay, let's just bygones be bygones, let's let it go. Well, you got a little problem there because you literally sent Steve Bannon to jail. You sent Pete Navarro to jail. You sent other people to jail. This is what you did. Now, it used to be, okay, we're not going to prosecute about that stuff. We're going to smear them in the press or whatever the case is. But also, let's not forget, there are actual crimes here of lying to Congress. It's just a question of whether or not you choose to prosecute them. James Comey has been a political animal the entire time he was in the FBI, choosing not to prosecute Hillary Clinton over the email server scandal when he had her dead to rights and saying he wasn't going to prosecute her, opened up this giant Pandora's box, especially when it comes to documents. So you're going to go after Donald Trump for documents, but you're not going to go after Hillary Clinton for emails, and you're not going to go after Joe Biden because you say he's too old and senile. Guys, we could do this all day long. The pendulum will swing back and forth. Fascinating article, actually, here from National Review. National Review had 3 or 4 articles dissecting the entire indictment and saying, yeah, we're not so big on this, but here's the actual case. This one here is from Andrew McCarthy, who does a good job breaking this down. He says James Comey has a dilemma. The vindictive indictment of the Trump Justice Department barely managed to get a grand jury to approve on Thursday is so ill-conceived and incompetently drafted, he should be able to get it thrown out on a pretrial motion to dismiss. Legally, he'll be entitled to that, and it would short-circuit the very expensive and punitive litigation process. Yet the case has been randomly assigned to a Biden appointee in the Eastern District of Virginia, Judge Michael Nachmanoff. If Judge Nachmanoff throws out on pre-trial, President Trump and his supporters will rail that the fix was in. So as pointless as a trial would be, Comey and the court may want the vindication of a swift jury acquittal. It's a hard call, but it's not a hard case. It's a mess. It is widely reported that the pre-jury charge that the grand jury approved, as opposed to the one that the grand jury voted down, deals with Comey's interaction as FBI director with his then deputy director, Andrew McCabe, in connection with a leak to the Wall Street Journal regarding FBI's Clinton Foundation investigation. We must resort to reporting about what's in the indictment rather than just reading the indictment itself, because the charge is so poorly drafted, it's not entirely clear what Comey is alleged to have lied about. The indictment does not mention McCabe or Hillary Clinton, who are referred to as someone else at the FBI and Person 1. That's not unusual, since McCabe and Clinton are not charged in the case. Yet also missing from the indictment is any description of the incident involving McCabe, Clinton, and Comey, out of which the perjury charge supposedly arises. Guys, you may want James Comey to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This is badly drafted. This is really badly drafted. Look, do I think James Comey is guilty as sin? Yes. We have I had Mike rip tons and tons of audio today, which I'm going to play for you, showing he's guilty as sin. This motion is garbage. This indictment is garbage, and it's clearly written by somebody who doesn't know what they are doing. This is James Comey in 2024.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put a former, the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Wow. Just wow. This guy has always been political. This is the day after Joe Biden was sworn into office.
Convict him, bar him from future service, have the prosecutors, the local prosecutors in New York, pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life just down the street where Joe Biden is trying to heal this nation.
Come on, guys. Really? Give me a break. By the way, the hypocrisy from the Democrats is insane. So somebody like Adam Schiff can dish it out, but sure can't take it. Thank you to Mazemore for putting together this little collection for us.
On the day Donald Trump leaves office, the Justice Department may indict him.
Very strongly in favor of indicting the president when he is out of office.
I don't think the incoming president should be threatening his political opponents with jail time. That's not the kind of talk we should hear from a president in a democracy.
That's literally what you guys were doing for what, 8 years? 8 years. That's what you guys were doing. Is the indictment poorly written? Yes. Is it poorly filed? Yes. Is it not well done at all? Yes. Is James Comey guilty of lying to Congress? Probably. You could have gotten somebody better to file this case. You could have gotten somebody better to do this case. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump wants to make James Comey squirm. And you know what? I get it. For how many years did they have this guy on trial? They made him sit in that courtroom in New York for what? For how long? For all this insanity. Unfortunately, the Democrats opened this can of worms, and now here we are. This is the new normal. Do we have a problem where people aren't going to run for office because they're worried that we're going to turn to a banana republic where whoever loses goes to jail? I'm a little concerned about that. At the end of the day, the Democrats are the ones who put Steve Bannon in jail, and I can't say this enough. I am no fan of Steve Bannon's at all. But if you guys are going to go do that, then guess what? The Republicans have every single right to go after somebody like James Comey, and I want to make one other note for you. There's no more auto pen. And I believe James Comey isn't on the list of people who got a pardon from Joe Biden. And as a result, why are they going after James Comey? Because he doesn't have the paperwork. Because he doesn't have the pardon. If he doesn't have the pardon, they can go after him. James Comey, since he's been out of office, has shown how political he was. The FBI was an absolute disaster under his tenure. They were investigating Americans for not liking the curriculum that was in their kids' schools. So, yeah, I don't like James Comey at all. Do I think he lied to Congress? Absolutely. We have clip after clip after clip after clip after clip of it. That doesn't change the facts that whoever filed this indictment did a lousy, lousy job of it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets thrown out. But the left's complete meltdown over this is so hypocritical, it's transparent. How many back-to-back clips do we need to play of them being very, very excited it happened to Donald Trump, but very, very upset and calling into question our democracy when it happens to James Comey? It's so hypocritical. Am I excited? I didn't get all excited about this yesterday when the news broke because I see the pattern. I see what's going on here, and it's upsetting. It's disappointing. But unfortunately, the Democrats started this mess. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the protester. Bennett, before you ask your question, by the way, yesterday we were having a back and forth about the text line, about what people say about you. Everybody had very complimentary stuff to say yesterday after your interview. I forgot to mention it on air. They're all like, yeah, we disagree with him, but he's fine. So, yeah, by the way, it wasn't a hate fest after you left the phone yesterday.
Oh, well, I'll have to start being more of a smartass on the air. We need to crank it back up again. That's no fun.
Yeah, what's up, man?
But, ironically, what I'm talking about today is not going to solve that because I did want to get back to the non-political thing. Remember, you were talking to me about social media and about how to create stuff that people would like. And I wanted to circle back to that. I had actually already done the experiment that you were talking about doing. You have to go to another call. But this is something that I think is people are really going to find interesting. See, the conventional wisdom around social media is that social media rewards content for getting a high rate of clicks and likes, and that mostly incentivizes people to create good stuff, but it also incentivizes people to create misinformation and rage bait and pandering content, stuff like that. It turns out that is actually completely wrong because remember, most social media sites, they let you see the number of times something has been liked, but also the number of times something has been viewed or watched, right? And that means you can actually take the likes and divide it by the views, and you can actually see the percentage of people who liked it, which means for the first time in human history, you can actually answer the question, is this thing popular because people like it more, or do people like this the same level as a whole bunch of other similar content, but this thing has been randomly boosted to a lot of people? And that is what turns out to be the case. If you look at some large account that you're using as a baseline, it's actually pretty easy to create content that gets likes at a higher rate than the big account that you're trying to beat.
Well, hang on one second.
Social media sites. Okay.
If you look at Twitter for a second, and it's been defaulting to this, which is super annoying me, and this backs up your point, by the way. So I'm on the homepage of Twitter right now. You have the For You section and the Following section. I want to see the following stuff because that's the stuff I agree with, right? The For You is the stuff trying to get you to fight with it. And it keeps defaulting over to For You. So that way I'll go on there and go, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and comment, and that drives the rage bait. So on Twitter specifically, it's fascinating that it has those two columns where you can go, this is the rage bait, here's the stuff I want to see and want to agree with, because Twitter has figured out, or excuse me, X has figured out that the more people fight, the more engagement they get. So, for example, here's another one for you. Remember when you used to block somebody? That was it. You were done, gone. You couldn't see anything unless you created like a fake account to go look at their stuff. Well, now you can see the stuff because it wants you to screenshot it so that you share it so people will get angry who agree with you. So now I actually think that's a little bit dangerous, especially with people who get stalkers and such. So I'm agreeing with you that there are things that are done for rage click. At the end of the day, all these sites want is the engagement, and they want you to produce more engaging content, which is why they pay you to produce content, and Facebook and Instagram are doing the same thing Twitter does. I'll give you the last word, then I got to run.
Okay, so I agree that the rage bait thing is a big problem, but I'm saying that's a separate problem. Remember, you had talked to me about maybe create content around volunteering for organ donation with the transplant team that I'm on. Yeah. So a way of avoiding taking the controversy out of it and to avoid that complication. So I had actually done not that exactly, but something similar where I'd filmed like optical illusion videos and created some really, frankly, mind-blowing stuff that I didn't believe it would work until I actually cut it out and printed it on paper. But the point I'm trying to make is that those were videos I could could create where the actual percentage of people viewing them who liked them was higher than some other, big Instagram or TikTok accounts that create similar stuff where, they would get liked by like 1% of the people viewing it. And the stuff I was making was getting like 5 or 6, that's very high because most people don't bother liking stuff that they view. So you can only compare it to like 5 is high, 1% is low. Thing is, even if you create content that gets likes at a higher rate than the big name stuff, the system will continue steering people toward the other account that's already been randomly boosted, even though people are liking that content at a lower rate.
Oh, yeah.
So when you talk about,
it happens. I'm not disagreeing with you. That happens all the time. Unfortunately, that's the kind of thing where you just got to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Got to run, buddy. Up against the break, but appreciate the call. You have a wonderful weekend. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, is President Donald Trump considering pulling FIFA and other big events out of cities like Seattle? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It's amazing that sometimes all you have to do is let Democrats talk, and they will inevitably prove how out of touch they are to what's going on with the average person. What am I talking about? Is specifically what happened yesterday in the Oval Office. A reporter was asking President Trump about some stuff they were talking about for the day with crime and safety and sanctuary cities and crime-ridden cities. And President Trump hinted at the fact that they might consider pulling big events like FIFA out of blue cities like Seattle. Give a listen to the interaction.
Immigration crime and the World Cup, actually. That's a lot of questions.
You have a number of cities that are pushing back against your immigration deportation move as well as your crime initiatives. Some of those cities,
I don't think they're very much pushing
some of those
that.
cities have World Cup games. Yeah. Seattle, San Francisco.
They're going to be very secure.
Could those games move if they don't cooperate with your crime?
Well, that's an interesting, I guess, but we're going to make sure they're safe. It will be safe for the World Cup. If I think it isn't safe, we'll move it into a different city. Absolutely, we'll take the world. If I think it's not, it's actually a very fair question. If I think it's not safe, we're going to move it out of that city. So, no, if any city we think is going to be even a little bit dangerous for the World Cup or for the Olympics, where they have Olympic overthrow, right? But for the World Cup in particular, because they're playing in so many cities, we won't allow it to go to. We'll move it around a little bit, but I hope that's not going to happen. Yeah.
So what happens? The media goes and finds every Seattle area politician they possibly can. What do you think about the Trump statements on FIFA and the World Cup, right? So they find Bruce Harrell. Como News finds Bruce Harrell. And what does he say? While the president continues to peddle baseless, divisive, and empty threats, by the way, no way Bruce Harrell wrote this. He can't use big words. Our administration is doing the hard work to prepare for this opportunity. We're working every day to make the 2026 World Cup a safe, welcoming, and fun experience for residents and visitors. We're advancing plans with FIFA and local partners to ensure Seattle is a destination and that we make the most of this special event. Hang on. So you're admitting it's not safe right now. You're admitting nothing you have done over the last 4 years has made Seattle safe. In fact, what you're admitting to is it's not safe, and you have to work to make it safe. Sarah Nelson said, here we go again, another threat designed to create panic. What's he going to do next, cancel Christmas? Funny you should mention Christmas, because I remember 2 years ago, you guys let the Hamasniks take over the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, so much so it is rumored that Bruce Harrell was supposed to attend, saw the Hamasniks was there, and then said, nope, I'm out of here, and didn't even bother showing up. She said, we've been working hard to plan for a safe and successful World Cup game since Seattle was announced as host city, and we're not going to be distracted by Trump's crazy-making antics. Why isn't Seattle safe the rest of the year? It's nice that it was safe during Taylor Swift. It's nice that it was safe during the All-Star game. But the surrounding areas weren't because you pushed all the crime out there. And on top of that, it returned to normal right afterwards. Consider this for a minute. FIFA comes to town, and soccer hooligans are insane. There are already a lot of Antifa types in those crowds locally. So now, what if the Antifa types decide to start rioting during the World Cup? What, you think the Seattle Police Department, as defunded and demoralized and with as few officers as they have, can actually handle something like that? The answer is no. What if the Hamasniks decide to start blockading freeways again during that time? You going to be able to shut that down? And then we're a national embarrassment. The question shouldn't be, are things going to be safe for FIFA? The question should be, why aren't things safe for the people who live in Seattle right now? And just to emphasize the point, by the way, the Seattle Times is admitting as much. They put a headline in today, and they put this on social media. Do you live in an RV in the Seattle area? Share your experience. Hey, drug dealers, we want to hear what you have to say. Hey, human traffickers. Hey, chop shop owners. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear your stories. First of all, if somebody can't afford a house, you think they can afford the Seattle Times? You think anybody in these things is reading the Seattle Times? Why are they writing this? It's never been more expensive to rent or buy housing in the Seattle metro area. Faced with some of the highest housing costs in the nation, some are looking for alternatives. They're trying to make it seem like everybody on the streets is there because they were fired from Amazon, when really we know they're there because they're drug addicts, have mental health issues, or are criminals. And that the people who actually need help are the vast, vast, vast minority of the people on the streets. But that doesn't stop the Seattle Times from trying to weave this false narrative to make it seem like Orange Man bad, there's no crime in Seattle. Really? If I drive through Soto today, around the stadium where we're about to have the playoffs. Hey, by the way, anybody who's coming to town for the playoffs with the Mariners, don't bring your car. Don't take mass transit. Uber's going to cost you a fortune. Welcome to Seattle. That's the problem we're going to have with all that. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Ian in Tacoma. Ian, what's going on?
Well, I am so glad to hear Seattle's safe, and I just imagined all those attempted break-ins on my truck. The real point I'm after, though, is in regards to the political prosecution. I said this when the Democrats pulled the supermajority rule. They were not going to like it when it was jammed on the other foot.
Yeah.
I said it when they did this with Trump. And my question is, when do we finally stop? The Democrats up the ante, the Republicans respond. It's turning into a cycle. I don't expect you to have an answer, but we got to think about where this stops eventually.
I'm not disagreeing with you, and that's what I'm worried about too. Meaning, if they went after a former president, where does it stop? I don't know. And then if I were to suggest right now that Republicans be the adults and say, we're not going to do this anymore, you know what happens? Everybody who goes, but they did it to us, will get mad at me. I don't know where this stops. I thought maybe the Charlie Kirk moment would have been something where people go, all right, guys, let's chill out. Let's calm down. But what was it? The body wasn't even cold yet, and the Democrats start going, no, it's right-wing violence that did all this. Every time an opportunity comes along.
It wasn't even an hour.
Exactly.
Until somebody in Seattle was standing out there with a sign saying, thank God he's dead.
Exactly.
It's getting so insane.
Exactly. And think about all the politicians who did that. I mean, sure, one random guy can hold up a sign, but you're talking about politicians literally saying that kind of stuff. You've got Ilhan Omar saying he should be in the dustbin of history. You know, that's the problem, is that when the moment comes along, everybody keeps missing it. I wish I had some wisdom to give you on that. I'm not sure how this ends, and unfortunately, I only see it getting worse. Ian, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Democrats' hypocrisy is on full display, not only with the Comey stuff, but also on the government shutdown. It seems like they forgot what they said just last year. We'll have that indicting audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Ever since we found out that Washington State, California, other sanctuary states are issuing commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens who can't read or speak English, the question has been, what is the federal fix for this going to be? Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy came out with an announcement today about this.
So the combination of a catastrophic failure of states to follow the law and a broken system has created an imminent hazard to American travelers. That is why today I'm announcing two immediate major actions. Number one, we're issuing an emergency rule that fundamentally overhauls who is eligible for a non-domiciled CDL. These tighter federal standards, they're going to keep Americans and families safe on our roadways. Now, this is not a proposal. This is a final rule. And it is effective immediately. Jesse's going to go through those details in just a little bit, but here's the bottom line. Non-citizens will not be eligible for a CDL unless they meet a much stricter set of rules. Second, all states must immediately pause the issuance of non-domiciled CDLs until they can comply with our new rules. My message, it's very simple. Get into compliance now, or we'll pull funding and we'll force you into compliance. Nowhere in the country have we found a more egregious licensing situation than in the state of California. That's why the second action we're announcing today is an additional enforcement action against California. So for 2 weeks, FMCSA investigators were on site in California actually looking at their records. So we took a random sample. Investigators found that more than 1 in 4 non-domiciled CDLs were issued in direct violation of federal safety standards. So let's just put that another way. Over 25% of these licenses, they were issued illegally.
Now, your first question is probably my first question, which is what he said at the beginning. Why are you giving them to illegals at all? They shouldn't have them. Why are you trying to get them into compliance? Because they don't have enough truck drivers right now is probably what's going on. They need to train more truck drivers. That's not a good reason. It's just a reason. And you have another one here, is that the federal government can't actually control all this because right now they've been so reliant on the states for so many years. They can't put the infrastructure in place in time, and they can't deal with the people on the roads itself in time. So they're making compromises. At the same time, they are making very fair compromises. Get into compliance. Here's how you get into compliance. And the question is, why wouldn't you get into compliance? They just gave you a get-out-of-jail-free card, literally a get-out-of-jail-free card, where they're allowing the illegal aliens to keep driving, assuming they meet certain standards. Want to bet that California is still going to do the fight anyway just because they want the fight, not the solution? If California and Washington and all these other states pick the fight after he just said that illegal aliens can continue to be truck drivers if they get into compliance, you know it was about the fight, not the problem. And they're doubling down on the dead bodies. We know of the 3 people killed in Florida. We know of the other people who were just killed in another major accident where their car was sandwiched between 2 trucks. Those are the ones we know about. How many other commercial driver's licenses were issued to people who shouldn't be driving a car, let alone a truck? So, we're going to see who wants to fight and who wants to actually solve the problem. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
I got a bit of breaking news for you from Skagit County.
What's up?
Where we are some of us right now are doing the impossible and thanking Donald Trump for trying to get Seattle out of the World Cup. So why is that?
I don't think it's coming to Skagit County, though.
We are here's the problem.
Yeah.
Our transit ends at 9:00 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to figure out how to find the funding and the ability to scale up to handle World Cup lodging customers between Seattle and Vancouver, BC. So we're trying to get a lodging tax to go through at the last minute at the buzzer beater here. And I'm sitting here the last few days saying, go Donnie, come on, man. Come on, get us out of the World Cup.
Wait a second. Joe, I have an idea here, okay? I have an idea. Why don't we just charge for the light rail? You know, for Taylor Swift and for the All-Star game, they made the light rail free. Why don't we just charge for it? And then you might be able to solve Sound Transit's budget problems instead of making it free like they always do.
Well, Sound Transit isn't free, and Scattered Transit isn't free either.
I know, but what I'm saying is for these big events, they make them free. They lose out on all that revenue. They make them free for those events, and they have a budget problem. Maybe that might solve it, don't you think?
Well, I think attaching a Sound Transit fare to a ticket price would be perfectly reasonable.
Okay, well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying charge for the train, Joe. Why don't we just charge for the train as opposed to making it free? They don't make the subways free in New York when there's the World Series there.
And they're not going to make them free for the next world champions, the Seattle Mariners. So we agree.
You want to bet? I bet you they do because they've done it before. Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate the update. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
You know, I'm glad you brought this up regarding the drug dealers and stuff like that. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't want to come downtown, especially to watch the Mariners game. Because first of all, drug dealers will steal your cell phone. And when they steal your cell phone by pointing a gun at you and then taking it, they're going to leave you without a phone to call 911. And that's what they don't want.
Well,
that's what they do want.
I think we have the other problems where, don't forget, we had that person who was in town touring got stabbed to death on the light rail. Don't forget, we had that person who was in town coming out of a hotel downtown and got stabbed. I mean, welcome to Seattle. Here's your stabbing. It's not even necessarily a gun problem. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. Just before we go, I love how short-sighted and how their long-term or short-term memory has been completely eroded. Remember all these Democrats who are now saying, hey, you know what? This is the Republican shutdown, and we're going to have a shutdown if we don't get what we want. Seems to me they forget about the things they said just a year ago. Here's Chuck Schumer.
If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. A government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos, as the Social Security Administration limits certain services like benefit verifications or fixing errors in payments. Our veterans could see regional VA offices shut down and support services put on hold. Some of our military service members could be forced to work without pay. Families who benefit from WIC and other nutrition programs could see benefits halted.
He said that a year ago, and now he's cheering on a shutdown. Here's Elizabeth Warren a year ago.
The least we can do, the bare minimum that we can do, would be to pass a continuing resolution to keep the doors open and the lights on. We can ensure that over 1 million federal workers aren't simply sent home for no reason. We can avoid a government shutdown. This is democracy. And in a democracy, hostage tactics are the last resort for those who can't win their fights through elections, can't win their fights in Congress, can't win their fights for the presidency, and can't win their fights in the courts. For this right-wing minority, hostage-taking is all they have left, a last gasp of those who cannot cope with the realities of our democracy.
Just substitute right wing with left wing, and boom, she's 100% accurate about what she is saying. The Republicans just want to pass a continuing resolution to exactly what Elizabeth Warren said. You know what I recommend they do? I recommend instead of any of them testifying and railing against the Democrats, they just play what the Democrats said last year. And then it's entered into the congressional record again. When we come back, my friends, Sinclair Media caves and puts Jimmy Kimmel back on air. Why are they doing that now? Is it because of Katie Wilson? I doubt it. We'll tell you what's actually going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yesterday, Sinclair Broadcasting and Nexstar Media Group announced that they are returning Jimmy Kimmel Live to their ABC stations, ending their preemption of the late-night show over remarks Kimmel had made following the death of Charlie Kirk, blaming it on some right-wing MAGA person. Completely false, by the way. We know it was a lefty psycho. So, question is, why? Why now? Well, they're still a company and they still like to make money. So I have a few theories here. Let's go through them for a second. I don't know any of this for real. This is entirely me speculating. 1, Jimmy Kimmel had the highest ratings of his career when he came back on air Tuesday night. 6.3 million viewers. Out of the 330 million in America, that doesn't sound like a lot. We don't even know how much they got from the streaming, etc. What we do know, however, is that there were a lot of streams also on top of that. Okay, so that is the highest of any late-night talk show host. However, something interesting is happening. Usually when there's something high-profile like this, they have the ratings available very, very quickly, and you can see how many people were watching it on this night and that night and the other night. I haven't been able to find them since. It was Tuesday night, and there has been no information since then. I have actually set up Grok and ChatGPT to do a running search of any article that releases the ratings. And I keep checking every single day. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Why do you think that is? Because probably everybody tuned in to see what he would say the first night. And then after that, nobody watched again. At the same time, I'm sure he still picked up some people who go, all right, we're going to support this guy and watch him a little bit. So I think that Sinclair and Nexstar, I think nobody was watching whatever programming they put on instead. They probably just put on whatever they could put on as opposed to a real effort. And they figured, you know what? It's easier to just let this guy finish out his contract and then be done with him. Plus, we don't want to keep getting the flack, and we're tired of people protesting at our affiliate stations. That would be my guess about what happened. I don't think it's because Katie Wilson, candidate for mayor, held a press conference outside and said, I'm not going to debate on Como News unless they put Jimmy Kimmel back on air. You know what's crazy to me, though? If you look in the comments of her little press conference yesterday, which we made fun of a lot when young Zach went there and got the audio, you can catch that in yesterday's podcast over at KVI.com and the KVI app and whatever your preferred podcast platform is. There are people in the comments, so brave. Thanks for all you do. Well, for Jimmy Kimmel? Are you kidding me? Really? This is what you're giving her kudos for. Oh, yeah. You know, crime's going to go way, way, way up if she's the mayor, and it's going to be a complete socialist disaster. But, oh, she stood against Sinclair Media and Como News and helped get Jimmy Kimmel back on air. Give me a break. Once again, the Democrat hypocrisy is on complete display. You remember what all the Democrats were saying when they wanted Tucker Carlson off the air? Let's just go back a couple of years to, once again, Chuck Schumer, the master of hypocrisy.
These lies continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
Would you consider that the government influencing free speech? Because it sure seems like you had the Senate Majority Leader threatening Rupert Murdoch, Fox News, and Tucker Carlson. Also, here's something else. You're mad about lies he told on air? I don't even remember what he was referencing at that time. But Jimmy Kimmel literally said the shooter was MAGA, which is blatantly false. By the way, he wasn't the only one. He was joined by the woman who wants his seat in the Senate, AOC.
We have very real issues with what is permissible on air.
Media organizations or social media platforms should be accountable for the role for being platforms for incitement.
I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't. And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. And that is the line that I think we have to be willing to contend with.
Well, first of all, lady, you don't know what the hell you're talking about because the rules for cable are very different than broadcast television. Fox News is on cable. We could talk about their affiliates some other time, but Fox News, where Tucker Carlson and crew were, that was cable. But on top of that, incitement, do you not remember what everybody was saying on CNN and MSNBC during the BLM riots? Because I sure do. What about fiery but mostly peaceful? What about them encouraging rioters? What about them suggesting bail funds? What about, most recently, CNN telling people how to dox ICE agents? That sounds like incitement to me. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Speaking of violence and speaking of incitement, signature gatherers continue to be attacked here in Washington. The latest stories are absolutely mind-boggling and insane, and I haven't heard the Democrats say anything about it. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Ice Cube's tour bus is torched in Portland. Did they mistake it for a certain federal agency? But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Wayne in Puyallup. Wayne, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. Great show. I'm Wayne the Pain down here.
Oh, well, anyway, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, great show. Hey, on the bridge down here that's out on 3rd Avenue and going into Pacific.
Yeah. The
truck hit it, and it was an underpass, not an overpass. So my buddy that's a small contractor also said, why don't, to do it in 2 weeks, why not go under the bridge and put supports in? It could be done. We're construction people. It could be done in 2 weeks.
I'm not saying it couldn't be. I don't know enough about the bridge itself, but I have another question here. How did Ron DeSantis manage to get an entire bridge built in 3 days after a hurricane took it out, and yet we can't get one repaired in less than, 6 months?
Oh, they said at least 2 months, so who knows how long.
Well, from what I've heard, they actually might hit that deadline because the contractor's been incentivized that the faster they finish it, the more bonus money they get. But at the same time, why can they get it done in Florida in 3 days and we need 2 months?
Yeah, it could be done in real quick. They could be working on it this weekend and put the supports up, steel supports, and big I-beams across it and shut the road down. It's shut down now.
Here's a better question for you. Wasn't that bridge already in trouble before anybody hit it with anything? How many other bridges are like that here in Washington? I mean, since I've lived here, I remember this one. So you remember the bridge that was up going on I-5 North, closer to Vancouver, up north. I remember this one, right? You remember when a truck hit that one, took it out, cars actually went off it into the water? You remember all that?
Right.
Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff where you think, how many of our bridges are in such bad shape that one little impact is going to do it? I mean, look, we saw what happened in Baltimore when that entire bridge came down because a cargo ship hit it. Now, mind you, that's a little bit bigger of an object. But still, how many of our bridges are in bad shape? Let's see. We also had the West Seattle Bridge, which that didn't even get hit by anything. They just go, oh, whoops, we built too many bike lanes and didn't save any money for actually doing any work on this thing. That was during COVID, and then they waited till people were driving again to do the work on it, causing all the traffic backups. God.
I know it.
Yeah, crazy.
So this would be easy to fix.
Yeah, it would be for anybody who looks at this stuff and goes, hey, I want to fix it. But, here we're looking at this and just going, why is it taking so long? Wayne, appreciate the call.
We got all these engineers making big bucks. Thanks, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the kind words. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. William Orr says, Ari, the Florida bridge was a different type of bridge. I acknowledge that. I'm not I am sure there are different types of bridges. I know there are different types of bridges. I also know that I have serious questions about why the Department of Transportation is so ill-prepared for this kind of stuff, but also why we have so many bridges that have structural problems that are still open to traffic. That's my overall question here. Accidents are going to happen. You can't stop them from happening. But the question really is, why do we have so many bridges that are so dangerous, that are so old, that haven't been replaced? We hear about all this money that's supposed to go to infrastructure, and yet it never actually goes to infrastructure. That's just my question there. This one here from Mike in Puyallup, he says, you would think they would want to fix it a lot faster since the homeless sleep underneath it. Dude, I thought that was a problem, just specifically here to Seattle. Meanwhile, some other problems going on around here. Let's Go Washington signature gatherers are continuing to be harassed in our area, including a hit and run of an innocent bystander outside of Fred Meyer in Tacoma on Thursday. According to the Center Square, Let's Go Washington has launched 2 new initiatives for the 2026 legislative session. One aims to reverse recent amendments to the Let's Go Washington-sponsored Parents' Bill of Rights initiative, and the other seeks to ban transgender girls, otherwise known as men, from participating in girls' sports. So the organization is currently collecting signatures for both measures. Let's go through some of the things that these radical activists have done to try and stop parents from knowing what their kids are learning in school and to make sure that boys continue to play in girls' sports. This is from Let's Go Washington. This is from their Twitter account. And all of this has been verified so far with police reports, video, etc. Case 1. A Vancouver Fred Meyer store manager shoved shopping carts into a round signature gathering table legally placed outside the store in order to keep people from being able to access petitions. The manager proceeded to tell shoppers and employees not to sign the petitions. By the way, interfering with signature gatherers on any level is illegal. Have you heard any Democrats say anything? Case 2. A person who is pictured in this photo who, well, they look interesting. They look like they'd be interested in keeping men and women's sports, approached signature gatherers in Tacoma and scribbled on 2 sheets of paper, 2 signature sheets. An accomplice to the scribbler shouted at the signature gatherer that she was being a words I can't repeat on the radio, and the signature gatherer would have something happen to her, let's just say that, if she wasn't in front of the store. Threats, intimidation. Case 3. A thief in Bonnie Lake stole a stack of signed petitions containing the personal information of voters in the area. You remember how ballistic Steve Hobbs and crew went when there was a firebombing of the voting ballot boxes? This is no different according to state law. And I haven't heard Steve Hobbs say one word. Case 4, Bonnie Lake again. What's going on in Bonnie Lake? A thief in Bonnie Lake returned to the scene of the crime the next day to harass the same signature gatherer. Case 5 is the one we played the audio for you yesterday. I'm not giving her more airtime, but the one who called people an inbred hillbilly and other things and then stood there yelling at people not to sign the signatures. Case 6, someone at a Walmart in Spanaway stole petition sheets and ripped up others in order to keep them from being submitted. Case 7, Covington Walmart. The thief pictured below, which is in this thread here, it's a person who is being arrested by the cops, stole a stack of petitions and was arrested by local police. Case 8, college-aged woman in Tacoma, stole petition sheets out of the hands of signature gatherer and proceeded to hit a bystander with her car as she was escaping. Okay, guys, we've reached a new level of insanity here. The authorities have been informed and are on the lookout for the suspect. Case 9, they defaced Let's Go Washington signs. Case 10, a man stood and harassed signature gatherers while they tried to allow voters to make their voices heard. Case 11, while police were taking down the information about the hit-and-run suspect, another person destroyed the property and signs of the gatherer outside the store in Tacoma. Police were on the scene and arrested the individual for destroying another person's property. I love how the person is crying with all her groceries while she's being arrested. I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for you. I think she's just shocked she's actually getting arrested. Case 12, a signature gatherer and voter in Spokane were accosted by a woman claiming that it is pedophile behavior to uphold Title IX for girls in sports. She then proceeded to shout and threaten the gatherer and the woman with her children, and this is all on video. This is what's happening here in Washington. This is what is going on. Oh, tell me again how all the violence is coming from the right, because it sure seems to me like it's all coming from the left. That's what it looks like right now. So I'm going to tell you what I want all of you to do. I want you to go to Let's Go Washington's website, and I want you to request an initiative. I want you to request an initiative form, and I want you to fill it out, and you can mail it back with your signature, your spouse's signature, your kid's signature, whoever's signature on the thing who's of legal voting age in Washington, and mail it in. Or alternatively, I want you to go set up and collect signatures. I actually spoke to Let's Go Washington this morning. I spoke to one of them, and I said, hey, I am more than happy to come out and do an event where we're going to sign just like we did with the gas events. I said, I'm more than happy to do it. I got my next few Sundays are actually free. Give me a call. More than happy to spend a few hours out there collecting signatures in the heart of Washington. We'll do it right here in Seattle. And we'll make sure to have a video camera set up because I'm sure there will be a lot of fun that goes along with that. So I want you to go on Let's Go Washington's website, and I want you to ask for some initiative sheets. And if you don't want to go out in public, that's fine. Remember, they can just come to your house. You can fill them out. You can send them right back. But make sure you fill them out to get these things on the ballot. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Jason and Lacey. Jason, what's going on?
So I heard you mention something about Ice Cube's tour bus getting torched.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next segment, but let's talk about it now. So basically, here's what happened. Ice Cube was on tour in Portland. Somebody firebombed the tour bus. Do you think that they just saw the word ice on the tour bus and was so triggered that they threw a Molotov cocktail at the bus?
Well, it could be that, but he was also on an interview, basically just taking a dump on the left's narrative about racism and basically saying it wasn't an issue.
Really? Can you do me a favor, Jason? Yeah. If you find that interview, can you email it to me, ari@kvi.com?
I will, but I don't know that you're actually going to watch it because it's like your arch nemesis. Tucker Carlson did it, and I know you guys don't like him, but
I'll watch it.
He does some really good interviews.
I'll watch it.
He did an interview with him.
Let me be clear about the Tucker Carlson thing for a second here. My big problem with Tucker Carlson is I don't know why he's doing what he's doing with all the anti-Semitic stuff. Because when he was on air, he had some good interviews. I was never a particular fan of the show, but if there's a good interview, we'll show a good interview. He's not Candace Owens, so I'll take a look at it. Send it over to me, ari@kvi.com, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Fantastic. Thanks for the tip, Jason. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This is a text over on the Warrior Injury Law text line. This is from the other Mike in Everett. He says, hey, Big Mike and Ari, is that list of crimes against the signature gatherers going to be posted on your social media feeds so we can check it out? I will make sure to share it on mine, no problem whatsoever. But if you go to Let's Go Washington social media feeds, it's all right there. With pictures, with videos, it is all right there. I was going to write it up over the weekend because I assume, unfortunately, that there are going to be more of these issues over the weekend. In fact, I would say, unfortunately, that's a safe assumption. And let's not forget what happened last time Let's Go Washington was collecting signatures. The left was literally trying to pay the paid signature gatherers to go to other states so they wouldn't be here to help. The left set up a tip line to report the signature gatherers so that way people could go and harass them, which is insane. So you know what? Turnabout's fair play. Here's what I recommend you do. And I said this yesterday. I think you should report all these lunatics that are harassing signature gatherers to Bob Ferguson Hate Crimes and Bias Incident Hotline because they clearly have a bias. This is clearly a hate crime. They don't like us because we're conservative. They don't like us because we want women to be in women's sports and not men. They don't like us because we want parents to have rights. So call the hotline, 1-855-225-1010. That's 1-855-225-1010. Or go to the Attorney General's website and report it right there. Now, the thing about reporting this, nothing will happen. Nothing at all. The only thing that'll happen was it will become a data entry point when they're trying to make this website all about, oh, look at all the hate crimes in Washington. You know what I would love? If it showed that all the hate crimes in Washington are targeting conservatives. You know what we should do, by the way? You guys should flood this, and then I should do a public disclosure request to find out what's being reported on this. So when they actually put out the data, we have the data first. Oh, I should do this over the weekend. I should do a public disclosure request for everything reported through the hate crimes hotline and find out exactly what is being reported. That's all open to public disclosure. Mike, what do you want to bet? They're going to claim they can't give it to me and they're going to redact everything, claiming it's personal information. Guaranteed that, you know what? I can't wait to do this experiment. I'm just going to do it for the first month. It went hot, July 5th, 6th, something like that. It was supposed to go hot July 1st. It didn't for days. So let's say July until now. All the reports, and you know what? I just want it on an Excel spreadsheet. That's all I want. I just want whatever it gets dumped into, just forward it on over to me. I'll go through the data myself. With a little help from AI, we'll go through all the data together and see what it reveals. Oh, this is so much fun. Absolutely so much fun. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Justice announced yesterday it has filed federal lawsuits against 6 states, California, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania, for refusing to provide statewide voter information lists upon requests. Now, they've already done that for Oregon and Maine. I wonder if they're going to do it for Washington, because Steve Hobbs just the other day said, basically, I'll comply with you government people, but I'm not going to give you all the information you want, which means They're not going to be able to find out if Glenn Morgan is accurate. Glenn Morgan from We the Governed came on the show and told us 1 in 7 voters in Washington state don't have valid voter ID information in their registration. Now, this doesn't mean they're illegal. It could mean they're duplicates. It could mean they're dead. It could mean there's just some bureaucratic mess. But at the same time, wouldn't you rather find out? So how many people now live in Washington? What is it, 8 million, 9 million people? Right, we went up from 7 to 8. We're at 8 million people right now. So we're at 8 million. Imagine if over 1 million of them who are registered to vote. Imagine, let's say, all of them are registered to vote. If over 1 million of them don't actually have the correct information to vote. Think about that for a second. That is a huge amount of people. Shouldn't we want to check this out? I thought our voter system is so secure. I thought it was so secure. I thought it's so accurate. Then you should be willing to share everything. By the way, if Steve Hobbs actually shares this information, he'll be able to shut up a whole bunch of critics. The only reason he wouldn't share this information is because he knows what it's going to reveal. When we come back, my friends, more information about Antifa violence in Portland. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The Instagram account Seattle Submissions now has video of Ice Cube's firebombed bus in Portland. Now, some local media outlets are claiming this started with the engine. This doesn't look like it was started with the engine, my friends. This looks like it was firebombed. In fact, it looks like the point of impact is nowhere near where the engine is, the part that was worst hit by this. Now, I can't tell from the video if the bus says Ice Cube or Ice anything on the side of the bus, but if it does, do you think this is because some moron said, that says ice and I'm triggered? Let's go firebomb the thing. Yay, Portland. Meanwhile, other dumb stuff in Oregon. According to Fox News, authorities in Oregon announced a murder suspect who was mistakenly released from prison earlier this week is back in custody after igniting a multi-day manhunt. Now, we have exclusive audio of what led to this release. Give a listen.
Desperate and scared, Joe used his superior intelligence to come up with the best escape plan he could think of.
Hi, excuse me. I'm actually supposed to be getting out of prison today, sir.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong line, dumbass. Over there.
I'm sorry, I am being a big dumbass.
Sorry. Hey, let this dumbass through.
Isn't that easy to get out of jail? How do you accidentally get released from prison? Ty Anthony Sage, 26, was accidentally released from the Multnomah County Detention Center in Portland after posting bail on Monday. He never should have been able to post bail. He's facing second-degree murder, first-degree robbery charges stemming from a 2021 killing of a 15-year-old. Both Sage and 26-year-old Kevin Rivas Ramirez were arrested in May. On Thursday, authorities announced Sage was taken into custody around 1 p.m. at a gas station off Highway 101 in Florence, Oregon, approximately 180 miles from the jail where he was being held. He was arrested with the assistance of U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force, according to the sheriff's office. He reportedly appeared at a hearing last Wednesday where a judge issued a ruling denying him bail, and the next day, according to Fox 12, and somehow was still managed to be released for only $5,000, a direct violation of the judge's orders. They are now investigating how this clerical error happened. Do you think it was some radical activist, or do you think it's just bureaucrats being bureaucrats? Let us know at 206-421-5757. According to a press release, the county authorities, the county employees rather, who are now covering their you-know-whats, quote, acted in good faith and sought clarification with the court. But, still managed to somehow release the guy. Bravo. Well done, everybody. Really, just well done. So if they ever catch this guy who firebombed Ice Cube's bus, is he just going to be released right away? Are they going to say, well, we understand why you were triggered. It's because it said ice in big letters, and that can be very, very scary. So totally justified. Welcome to Portland, my friends. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, Travis Couture will be joining us to weigh in on the fact that Bob Ferguson is now blaming Donald Trump for all of Washington's budget woes, even though he has nothing to do with it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, while I was offline for the Jewish New Year, news came out of an economic forecast of our state, which is even worse than we thought it was beforehand. Of course, Republicans have been warning about this since 2019, and our governor, as opposed to actually dealing with any of this, is deciding to blame President Donald Trump, which does not factor into any of this at all. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, the one and only Representative Travis Couture. Thank you so much for being back with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, Ari.
Now, you were intimately involved in the budget discussions. I mean, basically, you ran them for the Republicans, and you guys saw this coming for ages. So tell us about behind the scenes what happened here, because it seems like anybody who could do math could tell you this was coming, and it seems like the Democrats were caught completely unaware by this?
Yeah, I mean, not only were myself and my Republican colleagues predicting this all throughout the last legislative session, or even before the last legislative session, but I was predicting it back 3 years ago. And so, I mean, it's a totally predictable consequence that when you massively continue to increase spending and put new programs on layaway that you don't have the money to pay for later on down the road, and you kick the can down the road on enough things, it's predictable, especially when you're raising taxes. You start hitting what's called the Laffer curve, which just essentially means that you've taxed too much, and now you start to see diminishing returns. And what are we seeing all across? We're seeing a stunning lack of manufacturing jobs and construction jobs and home permits and real estate excise taxes from new home developments and other things, and very lagging and down retail sales. And this is all a predictable consequence of the policies that are passed in Olympia, but not just the policies, but also the tax policies, the new taxes. So what did we get for the largest tax increases in state history last session? Well, they've already spent us into oblivion, and now we're staring down the barrel of easily $1.5 billion deficit going into next session. And I argue it's probably going to be more, maybe more like $2.5 billion, because that number doesn't account for all of the lawsuits and settlements, especially with Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which is over $1 billion just by itself that we have to still pay. That doesn't even hit the balance sheet. And then also, right now, there's a lawsuit by Comcast in Thurston County Superior Court that could put an injunction on the new sales taxes that hit us on October 1st here, coming soon. And so that could cost another $500 million or so. So we're in bad shape once again going into the next session, because Democrats in the majority party didn't want to listen to all the warnings. They didn't want to practice priorities of government. They didn't want to, protect the most vulnerable in our society and cut the waste. Instead, they just recklessly spent, once again, an 8% increase to spending in a time where we had a massive deficit and the largest tax increases in state history. And what did we get for it? Politicians, bureaucrats, and criminals won in this budget. And we did a bunch of pay increases as a result of things like cutting $782 million from poor people's health care in this state.
Unbelievable. And I love how Bob Ferguson is blaming Donald Trump. So let's go through a few of these items. One, if we want to see a real world example of what was going on, we could have just looked at Seattle. You drive down Seattle streets, and most of the shops are empty. In fact, the mayor had to start paying rent for a lot of these places to incentivize them to even come do business in Seattle. So he offered it up to a lot of nonprofits and a lot of other community organizations and art studios that you're clearly not getting the same kind of revenue from as you would as a restaurant or a business. Then you talk about the crime issues we're having, where Bob Ferguson says, oh, we're going to raise the sales tax so we can fund that, but it's not actually going to that. Then we find out the Democrats cut all that money from Medicaid, and meanwhile, they're blaming the Trump administration. Most of the Trump cuts haven't even happened yet, and they're still blaming the Trump administration for it. So really, this is a complete disaster of the Democrats' own making, where they taxed all these companies to their breaking point where they're moving out. In fact, the Wall Street Journal had an article on it the other day where they were finally saying something I've been saying for a long time, which is all these tech companies are doing all the layoffs here. And because they're doing the layoffs here because they don't want to be here anymore, they're not doing the layoffs elsewhere. And it seems like the Democrats are the only ones who haven't figured it out, or they have figured it out, and they said, let's blame Donald Trump instead.
Well, yeah, and, it's a great point you bring up about capital flight, because in today's modern economy, it's easier than ever before to capital flight your way out of Washington State. You hear the CEO of Microsoft, Brad Smith, talking about this pretty openly right now. I mean, they even taxed us to die in the state of Washington this year. It's crazy. And, you start to see these big companies that provide family wage jobs starting to move things out. And of course, a lot of work can be done remotely in other states now, right? And so it's pretty devastating. And we've seen just an enormous lack of construction jobs and manufacturing as well, because you can't view all these companies in a vacuum. I mean, the economy is many people deciding how to serve one another, right? That's capitalism. And anytime the government tosses in false market signals, it starts to send a signal to get the hell out of here. And one of the things I really wanted to mention to you is, the Democrats now in Olympia are starting to see the big businesses move out. And there was, an article in Seattle Times about, a big grocery store trying to move away from a crime-ridden, drug-infested area that Democrats have failed to fix. And instead of trying to make policy better and make things better in that community so that business and that grocery store with very small margins could stay afloat, instead now the Democrats are floating that we're going to have a vacancy tax, a tax on when you leave. We're going to tax you to leave. And that is so authoritarian. I mean, you can't even escape Washington anymore. I once joked about a year ago that it won't be long until they tax you to leave or tax you to die. And actually, both of those things, one of those things already happened and another one is about to happen. But, for all of the times they want to blame Trump for fascism or authoritarianism or anything else, taxing a business to escape is about as authoritarian as it gets. Yes. And as far as Medicaid goes and H.R. 1, or the big beautiful bill as we call it, Democrats cut almost $1 billion out of Medicaid before H.R. 1 was ever even proposed. And we don't even know all of the impacts. A lot of the impacts of H.R. 1 are unknown, and they wouldn't even hit as of right now until about 2027. So any hospital, any patient in Washington state who's feeling the pinch of cuts, those are Democrat cuts made in Olympia, right here in our own state of Washington with a Democrat majority, and Bob Ferguson signed them into law. H.R. 1 doesn't hit the books until 2027, but right now Congress is already still talking about continuing to reform it, and that's why we don't even really know the true impact. So when Bob Ferguson goes out and says, crazy amount of people are going to lose health care coverage and everyone's going to die as a result, this is cruel and immoral. Well, he did cruel and immoral things when he signed it into law, literally the same day H.R. 1 was proposed. And so this is the largest Medicaid cut in state history made by Democrats. And they keep trying to gaslight and throw rocks in their glass house. And it's just the height of hypocrisy to blame D.C. And I'll just say to anyone who's listening, this was not your fault. This was not Republicans' fault. This was not Washington, D.C. or another state's fault. This was Bob Ferguson and legislative Democrats' fault here in Olympia. That is why our hospitals are suffering. That is why patients and people of low income and disabilities are suffering right now. And it's not going to get better. And it's in the budget situation where we find ourselves in yet again spent into oblivion into another deficit before the ink even dried on the last budget and taxes. It's going to be harder and harder to fix things as a result because they've spent all the money.
Yeah. And just before we let you go, we're finishing up here with Representative Travis Couture, who actually was intimately involved in the budget planning on the Republican side of the aisle and not responsible for this debacle of the Democrats. So I noticed that a lot of the revenue that's missing was expected to be coming from the construction sector. And I know when I used to drive around Seattle, there were construction cranes everywhere. Well, you're not seeing that anymore ever since Amazon started moving out of town, ever since COVID. But now that Governor Bob Ferguson signed into law rent control, the developers flat out said, we're not going to build stuff here anymore. So he's not going to hit the amount of units he promised he was going to have for low income or affordable housing. And now they're not getting the revenue from it either. So yet another self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we predicted this all throughout this session and the session before when they originally proposed rent control, that this was going to harm development. That means less construction jobs. If you can't develop, you can't build things. And that causes some strain and pressure across all of the building sector, whether you're building cabinets or whether you're building, putting in flooring or whether you're putting up studs, right? It doesn't matter. And the point is that in the longest time here in the state of Washington with the Growth Management Act and all these crazy regulations and impact fees and energy codes and environmental regulations, we have already crushed our housing sector, and that's why we're in a housing crisis. I mean, many kids that are graduating high school, Ari, in my district cannot live in my district because there isn't affordable housing opportunities for them. And that's because we can't develop our buildable lands. And it's absurd. And the governor showed up to his first speech of the session saying, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to streamline home permits. I'm going to get rid of, I'm not going to defend, government. I'm here to reform it, is exactly his words. But then he went the opposite way. We had a Republican housing cost drivers bill that would have helped separate all of this stuff out and help us reform all of the housing stuff. He vetoed it. He vetoed that along with PIC Center for drug-addicted babies and so many other different things and put our budget into a tailspin. But he's not interested in solving housing in our state. He's interested in making it worse. So he signs rent control, as you mentioned, and we've warned over and over and over again that this is a failed idea. It's failed anywhere it's been tried, whether New York or San Francisco, and we need less government intervention into the housing market and less government intervention into the market itself. And that means less policies like rent control, which are devastating. And not only are we not building because of rent control, but people who offered rental properties and places for people to live now are not offering those rental properties or simply moving out of our state in their own form of capital flight because the regulations and the tenant landlord laws and the squatter laws are too onerous for them to even comply with, and they can't even cover their costs in the future. And so it's pretty terrible stuff. There's a lot that needs to be done in housing because, honestly, our kids deserve to be able to live in the communities in which they were raised if they choose to do so. And it shouldn't be, us having to have a 30-year-old child at home because it's just impossible to be able to afford housing here in this state. And so there's got to be a lot of work to be done, but it starts with having some basic economic sense.
Yeah. And it seems like the Democrats don't have any at all. Representative Travis
Zero.
Couture, thank you so much for exactly. Thank you so much for breaking all this down for us because so many people are completely unaware of what's happening in our state and who's to blame for it. So do appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thank you, Ari, and thanks for covering it.
Always a pleasure. Wish it was better news. Hopefully next time it will be. When we come back, Fake News Friday, put a smile on your face heading into the weekend. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Fake news
with young Zach.
Educate yourself, you fool.
On the Ari Hoffman Show, Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Well, it looks like everything the Biden administration told us was fake news turned out to be real news. That's why we have real fake news experts here. Welcome to Young Zach from the Morning Show. What do you got for us today, buddy?
Well, Ari, the auto pen never lies. I saw this real news story on Como 4's website. It was not about Jimmy Kimmel, but police dog named Mayhem alongside Kitsap deputies uncover Bremerton area meth lab. So I guess that meth lab was not covered by Allstate because they found Mayhem.
They found Mayhem, like me. That guy.
I like that.
That guy cannot act, by the way.
No.
We saw him in that. What? I don't even remember that.
Highest to lowest.
Highest to lowest.
He was okay in Rescue Me.
Yes, that was 20 years ago.
Oh, man, now I feel really old.
Yeah,
okay.
But you're right, Ari, because like that's what was so surprising. It's like, oh, the Allstate guy, they let him out of commercial jail so he could be in real movies. Then it's like, ooh, go back to commercials.
He was in that Brooklyn Nine-Nine, too.
Yeah,
that's right.
Where he
He
also
was.
just
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
plays the mayhem character.
Well, he's always the same character.
He's
It's
the
just
same
sometimes
guy.
it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Anyway,
So,
I'll send Allstate the bill for this, but
There you go. Yeah, this segment brought to you by Allstate. Be protected from mayhem. Like that guy who can't act in those movies.
unlike that meth lab, 'cause
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
they found the meth. So anyway, more with the Babylon Bee, or we'll start with the Babylon Bee rather. Democrats warn prosecuting political enemies may set a dangerous precedent.
I like that one.
They
That's good.
also had a couple Kamala Harris related memes, which is a name I had not heard in a long time. But Kamala's audiobook lets you pick which Kamala accent you want to hear for each chapter.
I like that.
You want Southern.
Yeah.
You want drunk.
Yes,
You want
whichever
California.
one. By the way, have you seen the interviews with her since she lost?
I try not to, but I have.
They are, every single one of them, she just looks bombed.
A little
completely
lost in the
wasted.
sauce there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that leads us to the next Babylon Bee headline. Kamala does speaking tour to remind nation why Trump is president.
I like that. That's good, too.
And you
every time one of those interviews comes up, I'm like, wow, that's
Dodge the bullet.
sometimes I think, maybe I got a problem, and then I hear her, and I'm like, oh, we're fine. We are fine.
Yeah.
doing just fine.
What else you got, Zach?
You sent me this one, Ari, from the Babylon Bee. Ammo company unveils new giant shell casing with more room for left-wing terrorists to write out all their motives and details.
I like that one a lot. That was very good.
When people say, let's get down to brass tacks, they don't mean the manifesto.
Oh, that's good. I was just wondering at
What
what
happened
point...
to notes?
Yeah, exactly. I was just wondering at what point the sales on like Dremel tools starts going up, because like are these people like using like Sharpies, magic markers? Sir Marks-a-Lot, my black licorice was my favorite back in the day. It's like
I was more of a blueberry guy.
Yeah, there you go. You always knew the marker huffers because they'd have like little spots on their nose. It's like you guys stay off the Marks-a-Lot, buddy.
Yeah. What else you got, Zach?
Well, speaking of a logo update, Democrat donkey now holding rifle.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You can grab your torches and head back to camp.
It's a spicy rhetoric.
Wow.
Lower the temperature. I mean, the sun's
Of the
still
donkey?
out.
You want slow, roasted, low temperature donkey?
Yeah.
Hard pass. Hard pass. What else you got, Zach?
I don't know. I mean, it's not fully a horse, so
Of course,
it's
of course.
okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just trying to normalize eating horse. Just a day that ends in a Y out here. Speaking of normalizing eating,
Your Spanaway is coming out, buddy. Jeez.
it's not possum season yet. Lay off the roadkill jokes. Am I implying that I'm mowing down horses in my Subaru Forester?
Is there a roadkill season?
Well, it's migration time.
I see. Okay.
Speaking of, RFK announces it's fine to eat the stuff in the little pouch that says "Do not eat in your beef jerky." And I would just like to state, for legal purposes, KVI does not endorse or condone eating silica gel packets or any packet that says "Do not eat" found in your jerky or other foods.
That's like that meme a while ago, which I saw, which said, years ago, the car owner's manual would tell you how to assemble a car. Now it tells you don't drink the fluid.
The blinker fluid's real tasty looking.
Yes.
But I've been
It
getting...
looks like Ecto Cooler.
like a surge?
Yeah.
Surge? Well, I'll tell you what, guys. I've been getting in a fight all day long out in the bullpen, and I'd like to see if I can get some people on my side. Either of you, or what will likely be zero texters, or you, and I'll just be the enemy of Seattle. But you saw what happened with the Cal Raleigh 60th home run ball, right?
It went over the fence.
Well, yeah, okay, so it goes over the fence, and then it is received by a guy. A guy catches the ball.
In
That
his
tends
glove.
to happen
Yes,
with home runs.
that's what happens.
Well, the guy gives it to a kid, which is nice in most circumstances, but this ball, by all accounts of auction house estimates, is worth, if he ends the season on this 60th home run, will be about a quarter of $1 million.
Sure.
That's what this ball's worth. So this guy hands this 12-year-old kid this $250,000 baseball.
Okay.
And the kid wants it to go to Cal Raleigh.
Okay.
A very nice story, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, the kid is rewarded with a like an autographed clean baseball and gets to meet Cal Raleigh on the field.
Okay.
I feel like more should be done.
I would agree, and I'll tell you why. Normally, when it's a ball of that significance, they don't just get to meet Cal Raleigh. Cal or the player in question. I've seen this happen with the Mets. I've seen this happen with the Yankees. I've seen this happen with countless other teams. And what happens is they go, here's your signed bat. Here's your signed ball. Here's my rookie card. Here's your this. And here's next year's season tickets, or here's World Series tickets for you and your family.
Yeah.
It's usually a bigger package.
He got a bat. From what's been reported, he got a signed bat, and as did the guy who caught the ball and gave it away. I had no notes on his package.
Okay.
But the kid got a...
Yes, exactly.
Phrasing.
Yes. I want to talk about the big dumper. Yes.
There you go.
But the kid got the same thing, like a couple signed baseballs, bat, meet the guy and watch batting practice. I think in the same way that the kid cannot possibly understand the gravity of $250,000.
So I'll give you a story for context, and I may have told the story before, but obviously everybody knows I'm a big Mets fan. My father used to do legal work for the Yankees, and one time I go with my father for a deposition at Yankee Stadium. And I'm sitting there, and afterwards they say, wow, you were so well-behaved young man. They take me over this closet, and they open it. Anything Yankees you ever could have wanted is in that closet. So they said, what would you like, Ari? And I said, nothing, thank you. I'm a Mets fan. So the stupid Ari Hoffman could have had God knows what.
And I've heard you tell this story a dozen times.
Yes.
And you regret this to this day somewhat.
To this day. Now, they handed me a hat, and they handed me like a T-shirt, and they handed me a couple of other things.
And we're talking about, I'm sure, items valued in the hundreds of dollars, right?
Right. They're not going to give me, like Babe Ruth's uniform.
That's not going to pay for that wasn't never going to pay for your college.
No, but at the same time, give the kid a little bit more.
That's what I'm saying. This is a kid he's 12 years old. I don't think he understands that he's now... it would have been more than a full-ride scholarship, a down payment for a house, and a new car. I mean, like, this kid has no idea, no way to comprehend what he's
make him bat
giving
boy.
up. Yeah.
Let him say play ball at the Mariners' first playoff game.
Yeah.
Give him a few things. I agree with you.
I'm calling on. I'm not going to assign a dollar amount. I'm not going to assign. I have it in my head, but I think more should be done from either the Mariners or Cal for this kid. Maybe something has and it's not been reported, but it just felt a little underwhelming and in a way taking advantage of the kid. Who probably doesn't know he gave up $250,000.
Yeah, that's the kid who down the road is going to be suing Nirvana because he's the kid on the poster in the pool or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out there. Where are the parents in this situation?
The dad was there. The dad, I think, has done a couple interviews, and he's, it's also in the moment. This all happens. We saw the estimates on the price of the ball the next day. This is all happening real time. The guy gives the kid the ball. The security from Mariners swiftly take the kid away and authenticate the ball, and that's when my understanding is that it happens that he's going to turn this over to Cal.
So I know these two things are not comparable, but I think it happened at Whistler Mountain.
Okay.
Where they trapped a woman on the gondola overnight. Okay, and they forgot about the woman overnight.
Sure.
So that's a lawsuit. I mean, that's a massive lawsuit.
It's probably a divorce.
Yeah. So she comes the next morning. They get the thing running, and she comes off and she goes, "Let me tell you what I want: ski passes for life, and this, that, and the other thing." Right? I think just a little bit more. You don't have to give them season tickets for life, but season tickets for next year or a box for
a
the
little
playoffs.
bit of money for a college fund sort of a thing.
A little bit more. I agree with you. Even if it's a place of honor, like, say, play ball for the playoffs, or, your honorary bat boy
Instead, he was
for a
treated
game.
like barista of the week at Starbucks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is how a kid joins Antifa.
Thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Like, the only thing I was getting at is, like, Zach, I appreciate your point of the kid not having the maturity or mental faculties even to realize the gravity of his situation. That's when a parent needs to be like, hey, the bat is cool. The ball with from the guy with the large bottom or something like that. That's fine, but what else?
Yeah.
Like there needs to be somebody advocating for the kid in this
maybe the dad was in the same. They were just genuine and nice, and I just think from the organization or the player, whatever, more should be done.
Yeah. I think you're 100%.
I did not expect full. I've been getting in battles all day about this. I did not expect this to go my way.
Tell us a little more about the opposition then. Like who is waging war with Zach in the
people
bullpen?
say, that I'm sleazy for thinking, that this should be. I don't want to come across that this should be transactional.
Sure.
I just think that in a way, whether or not the parent signed off on it, this should be rewarded greater than just a meet and greet and a signed baseball bat.
Yeah, I think you're right. And normally when you've seen this, you know what you should do, Zach? Just do this. Compare it to other ones in the past. Look for the high-profile ones. And go,
Ohtani's ball, the 50-50
there
ball.
you go. That's a good example.
50 home runs
That's
and
what-
50
yeah,
stolen bases.
that's what I think it
Something
was.
like that, yeah.
But
It's like $4.5 million.
look up that kind of stuff and just
Yeah.
see a comparison of what other
Sure.
teams did. Now, I understand the Mariners are
Well,
not as
this is
wealthy.
unprecedented that level of a ball has been
No, I mean,
handed
look at
over.
Mark McGuire's ball. Look at any of, I mean, we know that's not worth a lot now, but at the time
Sure.
it was. Look up things like that. There's a lot of these baseballs that you've seen these things happen before.
Sure.
That has happened before, so I would look those kind of things up.
Well, glad we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry for not being controversial.
I came in here armed, ready to.
Yeah.
No, we're on Team
I
Zach
thought we were
with
going to
this
leave,
one.
never having a segment again.
Well, that may be for different reasons. It depends upon what the honka to honka ratio is. Sorry, Pam.
Thank you, young Zach. Do appreciate it. You can you can catch Zach on the morning ride every single weekday from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Zach, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show.
Might as well go win the whole thing.
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45. Your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, text of the day goes to Eben in Bonnie Lake, who said on the Warrior Injury Law text line in response to our last story about the kid who caught the baseball, Cal Raleigh's 60th home run. Ari, the kid that gave Cal Raleigh the 60th home run ball probably knew that if he sold it, Washington would take all the money in taxes anyway. Which is... I don't think you're wrong, by the way. I don't think you're wrong. Switching gears over to what happened at the UN today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the chamber. Now, before we get into this, I have people ask me, Ari, why should I care? Why should I care at all? Look, I love Jews and I love Israel and all that, but why should I care about something that happens in a country thousands of miles away? Here's a story why. According to the post-millennial, domestic terrorist who admitted to a string of arsons and firebombing attempts targeting UC Berkeley and a federal courthouse that were inspired by Hamas has been sentenced to nearly 2 decades in prison. By the way, this happened this week. Did you hear about this anywhere at all? On Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey S. White sentenced Casey Robert Goonan, 35, of Oakland and Pleasant Hill to 235 months in federal prison for multiple acts of politically motivated arson and attempted firebombing in June of 2024. Did you hear about this at all, guys? Did you even hear about the case? Forget the sentencing. Did you even hear about this? Goonan was caught on video and pleaded guilty in January 2025 to maliciously damaging property by means of fire or explosives. Court records show Goonan admitted his attacks were motivated by Hamas's October 7, 2023 terrorist attack on Israel. He also urged others to carry out destructive acts on Bay Area college campuses in support of Palestine. That's a direct quote. Prosecutors said Goonan sought to intimidate and retaliate against the U.S. and California governments through violence. In one incident, on June 1st, 2024, Goonan placed a bag filled with 6 Molotov cocktails beneath the fuel tank of a UC Berkeley Police Department vehicle parked near campus. What does UC Berkeley have to do with any of this? In fact, they were one of the most anti-Semitic college campuses out there. But what's he doing? Attacking police? Attacking American infrastructure? That's what he's doing. The car was set ablaze after he ignited the devices. Days later, on June 11th, he attempted to firebomb the federal building and U.S. courthouse in Oakland, carrying 3 Molotov cocktails, hurling rocks at windows before fleeing from protective service officers. He also set multiple other fires on UC Berkeley's campus throughout June of 2024. At sentencing, the court referred to Goonan as a domestic terrorist. Prosecutors emphasized that the violence could have cost lives if it had been more successful, and that was entirely his point. And in fact, some of these other terrorists are more successful. Like this guy, who you may have forgotten, this happened last weekend, not a year ago, last weekend, at the Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua, New Hampshire. According to Nashua police, multiple law enforcement agencies and first responders rushed to the scene after reports of shots being fired around 9 p.m. It was a wedding. A wedding was going on. Witnesses said the shooter entered the facility during the wedding while guests were dining at the restaurant. According to the Patch, one witness reported hearing the suspect shout, "Free Palestine," before firing into the crowd. He shot somebody in the face. These are domestic terrorists who were radicalized by Hamas. Prime Minister Netanyahu made this point today in front of the General Assembly of the UN.
But I'm sure there are people in New York or in London or in Melbourne and elsewhere who are probably thinking, what does all of this have to do with me? And the answer is everything. Because our enemies are your enemies. So let's do something else. So first at the UN, let's do a pop quiz. And raise your hand if you know the answer. Here's the first question. Who shouts death to America? Is it A, Iran, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, the Houthis, or E, all of the above? All of the above. Correct. All of the above. Second question.
I love that he's holding up placards with the questions.
Who has murdered Americans and Europeans in cold blood? Is it A, Al-Qaeda, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, Iran, or E, all of the above? Correct. Again. So here's the point I wanted to make. Our enemies hate all of us with equal venom. They want to drag the modern world back to the past, to a dark age of violence, fanaticism, and terror. I think many of you are already feeling in your own societies the radical Islamist surge. You know, I'm sure you do, you know deep down that Israel is fighting your fight. So I want to tell you a secret. Behind closed doors, many of the leaders who publicly condemn us privately thank us. They tell me how much they value Israel's superb intelligence services that have prevented time and again terrorist attacks in their capitals, time and again saving countless lives.
And in fact, we saw some of that hypocrisy on display. Before he started his remarks today, a whole bunch of delegates from the United Nations got up and walked out. I have a list that I got from Grok of which nation's delegates walked out. Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, Russia, China, Qatar, Jordan, Turkey, Egypt, Algeria, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Morocco. If you're on a list that's supporting that, look who you're supporting walking out right there, including countries that have killed Americans. And then there's some other ones you just don't want to be associated with, given the rampant anti-Semitism in Ireland, Spain, Belgium, Slovenia, Norway, Portugal, France. You want to be on the same side of France? South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Tunisia, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, Colombia, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea. Really, guys? Really? You walked out on this speech? If you guys want this coming to your shores, sure, side with Hamas, but I don't see any of these countries opening up their doors to Palestinian refugees. I don't see any of them opening up and saying, hey, why don't you come create a Palestinian state here? There's just as much justification for doing so. There was no such thing as a Palestinian in history. So tell me exactly why you're not doing it in your countries if you feel that way. Why'd they get up and walk out and the people cheering them? You're cheering Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran. Why are you excited about these countries? Because you side with terrorists. Now, by the way, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also pointed out exactly what the Palestinians do when these terror attacks happen.
This week, the leaders of France, Britain, Australia, Canada, and other countries unconditionally recognized a Palestinian state. They did so after the horrors committed by Hamas on October 7th. Horrors praised on that day by nearly 90% of the Palestinian population. So let me say that again. Nearly 90% of Palestinians supported the attack on October 7th. It's not supported only, they celebrated it. They danced on the rooftops. They threw candies. That's both in Gaza and in Judea, Samaria, the West Bank, as you call it. And it's just the way they celebrated another horror, 9/11. They danced on the rooftops. They cheered. They threw candy. You know what message the leaders who recognize the Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians? It's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off. Well, I have a message for these leaders. When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. All these countries can talk all they want about a Palestinian state, but I don't see them opening up their borders to Hamas. Now, Bibi Netanyahu is the master of bringing props with him to these speeches. In the past, he's brought little placards, and this one he brought the ones with the multiple choice questions on them we played earlier. But he was wearing a unique pin. He's wearing this giant pin. It's a big circular button, and it's got a QR code on it. So people started saying, what does this QR code actually link to?
You see this large pin here? It's a QR code. What I ask you to do is hold up your phones, zoom in, and you too will see why we fight and why we must win. It's all in here.
Now, I'm going to warn all of you, if you get curious and want to actually click and see what it was, it takes you to the footage I've seen of the October 7th massacre. The 48 minutes of the massacre video that wasn't released to the public before. I warn you, this is very, very graphic, and it will never leave your mind. Ever, ever, ever. However, it is there if you want to see it. I don't recommend you watch it. I really don't. You won't be able to get the images out of your mind, but it is there. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu also referenced and got a huge round of applause for taking out Hezbollah with Operation Grim Beeper. Got a big applause line on that. And I think he put the fear of God into everybody in Gaza when he said this.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to special efforts by Israeli intelligence, my words are now also being carried. They're streamed live to the cell phones of Gazans. So to the remaining Hamas leaders and to the jailers of our hostages, I now say, lay down your arms. Let my people go. Free the hostages. All of them. The whole 48. Free the hostages now. If you do, you will live. If you don't, Israel will hunt you down.
Now, a lot of people think this was a huge intelligence coup. And actually, this is one of the easiest things Israel was able to do, and let me explain why. Hamas has never built up infrastructure in Gaza if it didn't have to do with terror. Now, you know that when there's an Amber Alert here in Seattle, here in Washington, anywhere in the U.S., what happens? Your phone starts buzzing like crazy. I was in New Orleans one time with my wife, and there was a tornado alert, and my phone started buzzing like crazy. All the alarms started going off on everybody's phones. That's because the cell networks allow it to be interrupted with those messages when it's an emergency alert. Do you know who runs all the cell phone towers in Gaza and in that area? Israel. Because the Palestinians have never built their own infrastructure. One of the reasons they bought the pagers from the shell company that Israel created was because they wanted something that Israel couldn't monitor. They didn't realize Israel owned the company. If they had actually put money into their own cell network and their own cell towers, guess what? They'd have infrastructure, but instead they built terror tunnels. They bought weapons. They bought missiles. They bought things to kill Jews, to kill Americans, to kill anybody else who was in Israel on October 7th that they massacred. So actually, this intelligence coup of playing Bibi Netanyahu's video, pretty easy to pull off because the Palestinians have no infrastructure of their own because they've spent all the money on terror. Once again, to reiterate his point about Iran being the one that sponsors all this and killing Americans, here's Prime Minister Netanyahu.
President Trump understands better than any other leader that Israel and America face a common threat. He showed the world that when Iran and its proxies murder Americans, take Americans hostage, shout death to America, burn American flags, and try to assassinate the President of the United States, not once, but twice. He showed them there is a price to pay for all that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Why do you think Iran walked out of the room? Because they don't want to be called out publicly. Now, mind you, it's not just Jews that are being targeted by these terror groups. It's not just Jews that are being targeted in the Middle East. There's other people being targeted as well.
And Christians don't fare much better. When Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, was under Israeli control, 80% of its residents were Christians. But since the PA took control, that number has dwindled to under 20%.
I was out to the border the last time I was in Israel. There are massive guard towers along it. Because the Palestinians have taken such control of that area, they've gotten rid of all the Christians. Christians can't go to Bethlehem without armed guards anymore, except maybe on Christmas. They can bring a little less armed guards because there are more of them. Tell me again about the peaceful Palestinians. So then you want to give them a state right there? They'll massacre the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, anybody who doesn't agree with the radical Islamic terrorism.
Giving the Palestinians a state 1 mile from Jerusalem after October 7th is like giving Al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September 11th. This is sheer madness. It's insane, and we won't do it.
He's exactly right. Now, you know what? We've let him talk a lot. How about Hamas? One of the heads of Hamas was actually being interviewed by CNN, and the CNN, the person, Jeremy Diamond, did a really good job interviewing this Hamas official, who he's sitting right there. He's a terrorist sitting right there. They admit what they're doing. They admit they're using human shields. They admit they're denying access to the Red Cross because they claim it's complicated.
Hamas recently announced that Israeli hostages have been spread out throughout Gaza City ahead of and amid now this planned Israeli invasion of Gaza City. Is your intention to use those Israeli hostages as human shields?
No, we never use these people as shields. No, we never use them. All the time we explain that we as Hamas, we use these people or we deal with people according to the Islamic principles and according to the Islamic values.
But it was quite clear in the statement from the Al-Qassam Brigades.
I think this is a false accusation against all
This is
people.
a statement from the Al-Qassam Brigades, Hamas's military wing. They said that in order to deter this Israeli military invasion, they are placing Israeli hostages strategically.
You know that the hostages are spread everywhere. There is a big dilemma in this. Israel now is going and now is doing to destroy Gaza, to destroy everywhere, to kill people everywhere.
With all due respect,
how can you stop this?
With all due respect, when I speak with Israeli officials, I press them on all of these questions. I'm speaking with you right now, and I'm asking about Hamas's role. And Hamas just announced that it is holding these Israeli hostages in strategic locations around Gaza City, moving them above ground, while Israel is carrying out an invasion. Is the intention to use these hostages as a human shield?
Israel should stop targeting the civilian.
If you are treating the Israeli hostages in accordance with Islamic law, as you claim, why not give the Red Cross access to those hostages to assess their condition?
Look, the situation is very complicated. As we declare,
of course it's complicated, but that's not the answer to my question.
I am, as Hamas, I am ready to release him tomorrow. All of them.
Why not give the Red Cross access? This is something that the families, that the Red Cross has been asking for nearly 2 years now.
The situation is very complicated. The security situation is very complicated. It's not easy to get access for these people.
Have you tried?
It is not easy now.
Have you tried?
It is not easy, as I told you, to give him access. The security situation is very dangerous.
Kudos to CNN, by the way. CNN never does that good of a job. Kudos to Jeremy Diamond from CNN calling him out by name. So, what did the head of Hamas, their media guy, what did he say? Yes, we're using human shields, and yes, we're denying access to the Red Cross, and yes, we're intentionally not releasing the hostages. For those of you who might be joining us a little late in the middle of this segment, you may wonder what this has to do with us here in America. I would argue that Hamas is already here. This is a clip I played for you last week of the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. Somebody was upset that they wanted to name a street after a guy who sympathized with Hezbollah terrorists. Listen to what the mayor of Michigan said to this guy, Dearborn, Michigan, the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, said in response to this person, this American, who's testifying at public comment, and then I'm going to tell you the update to the story.
Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel that's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
Okay. Would you like to know who he was talking to? Fox News says it's Dearborn, Michigan's first city council meeting since his clash with a local Christian minister went viral after a heated exchange over a controversial honorary street sign naming. Mayor Abdullah Hammoud declined to apologize for his saying the minister was not welcome here and that he would launch a parade when he left town. Ted Barham, the same Christian minister, opened his remarks at Tuesday's meeting by repeating the words that went viral at the previous one on September 9th. He says, "The mayor in a way cursed me, as was seen around the world, and I would like to repeat what I said to you that day, Mr. Mayor. God bless you." Barham said he had no plans to file a lawsuit despite pressure from his supporters. He says people have been saying I should do that all over the world. I have no intention of doing that. Instead, he urged the council to consider his larger message. Bless those who curse you, love your haters. And I would say that in regard to Hezbollah as well. I would say that in regard to Mr. Siblani, and I would say that to Israel too, love your haters. Then he made a new appeal. Would it be possible for you, Mayor Hammoud, in front of the world and council members to join me in saying we would like to put a Christian call to prayer and a Christian call to faith in all the countries around the world where an Islamic call to prayer goes out? Others took the microphone to press the council more directly. And yet at the end of the day, the mayor said he would not apologize, would not agree, and doubled down on his remarks. They want Sharia law here. They want to eliminate Christians. They want to eliminate Jews. They want to eliminate the American way of life, which is why they celebrate on 9/11, which is why they celebrate on October 7th. That's what Israel is up against. That's what America is up against. And if Israel falls, they're going to come after America next because they're already doing so. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including the fact that a principal in Iowa, is apparently an illegal alien who's getting $300,000 a year and has a whole bunch of guns he brings with him to school. But before we get to any of that, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Well, kids in Iowa are learning their principal is an illegal alien who brings guns to school. According to Fox News, an Iowa school district superintendent living in the United States illegally, who also faces weapons charges, was arrested on Friday. Ian Andre Roberts, who heads the Des Moines Public Schools, the largest school district in the state, was taken into custody on a fugitive warrant. Apparently, ICE pursued Roberts after he sped away. They later found his vehicle abandoned, and an Iowa State Patrol canine was called in to help search for him. ICE says in a statement, after a search of the area, the subject was located in the brush approximately 200 yards south of where the vehicle was abandoned. What a great example for this principal, this superintendent of the largest school district in Iowa to set. By the way, this should inform everybody. It doesn't matter if you live in a red state or a blue state, you still have these problems in education with public schools. Inside the vehicle, authorities found $3,000 in cash, a fixed-blade hunting knife, and a loaded Glock 19 firearm. The suspect was arrested in possession of a loaded weapon in a vehicle provided by Des Moines Public Schools after fleeing federal law enforcement, said ICE Enforcement Removal Operations. This should be a wake-up call for our community to the great work that our officers are doing every day to remove public safety threats. How this illegal alien was hired without work authorization, a final order of removal, and a prior weapons charge is beyond comprehension and should alarm the parents of that school district. Roberts entered the U.S. illegally from, I don't even know how to pronounce this country, Guyana? Authorities said he last entered the country through New York on August 30th, 1999, on an F-1 student visa to attend St. John's University in Queens. Roberts was not legally authorized to work in the U.S. after his employment authorization card expired in 2020. So I got a question. How is he still working? It's been 5 years since 2020. I know everybody thinks 2020 was like a year ago. We're in 2025, people. How is he still working here? ICE said subject was encountered by Port Authority PD, was arrested for weapons possession. Hey, wait a minute. I thought illegal aliens aren't allowed to own firearms. How'd that happen? On May 22nd, 2024, a judge ordered that he be deported. Wait a second. Can we go back in time for a minute here? Who was president in May of 2024? It was the auto pen. It wasn't Donald Trump. So this guy was so bad they ordered him deported back then. And the school district kept him as a principal. The proceedings were held in absentia. He didn't even show up for them. On April 24, 2025, an immigration judge in Dallas denied a motion to reopen the case. Roberts was hired to serve as superintendent for Des Moines Public Schools on July 1st, 2023, following a nationwide search for qualified candidates. And you got this guy. A statement announcing his hiring said he was chosen through a comprehensive national search based on leadership profile prepared by the board after receiving input from all staff, parents, students, and community members. Ah, yes. Dr. Roberts proudly shares that he was born to immigrant parents from Guyana and spent most of his formative years in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, that's because he didn't live here. He didn't get here till 1999. Roberts worked in education in New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and St. Louis. So all these places had no problem whatsoever hiring somebody who wasn't authorized to be working in this country. This action follows Dr. Ian Roberts being detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents this morning. We have no information as to why Dr. Roberts is being detained or the potential next steps, the Friday message stated. Maybe if you guys had done a background check, you might know why he was being detained. Maybe. Just an idea here. Apparently, he's really good at running. He actually competed in the Sydney Olympic Games for Guyana as a middle distance runner. He also served on the Board of Directors Council, a local group comprised of several nonprofits focusing on the black community. So I have a question. Somebody want to explain to me how this guy got hired and why nobody figured this out beforehand and how he was hired in so many states, not just Iowa? Here's another one for you from Fox News. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, you have a leftist gun club with ties to political violence, which is posting recruiting flyers at Georgetown University with references to Kirk's death. So even though the media won't say that the person who killed Charlie Kirk was a left-wing radical, over here, the flyer says, "Hey, fascist, catch," which is what's said on one of the bullets. A red flyer from the John Brown Gun Club. If you don't know the John Brown Gun Club, let me clarify some things about the autonomous zone. So I know people like to generally say it was BLM and Antifa activists who are taking over the autonomous zone here in Seattle and were attacking the federal building in Portland. There was a group called the John Brown Gun Club. They are left-wing gun nuts. They're the ones who, when you see armed Antifa activists, they're usually members of that group. They were a group that was very, very present in the autonomous zone. The phrase is a nod to the same slogan, which was allegedly written on a shell casing by Tyler Robinson, who stands accused of murdering Kirk at a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University. The advertisement says, the only political group that celebrates when Nazis die. It is adorned with a QR code linking the page that says, we're building a community that's done with ceremonial resistance and strongly worded letters. Then why do you need the guns? Why were you guys involved in taking over the autonomous zone in Seattle? They say if you want to make a real change in your community, let us know. Why are you glorifying a shooter if it's ceremonial? Turning Point USA spokesman and Charlie Kirk Show executive producer Andrew Colvett flagged the flyer in social media post Wednesday afternoon. Shay McInnes, a sophomore at Georgetown University and treasurer of the school's College Republican Club, found the posters in plain sight on the school's activity board on Wednesday morning. You got to wonder how many people walked by those flyers and saw them. The Center for Counter-Extremism lists the John Brown Gun Club as a far-left group. Members of the organization frequently show up armed at left-wing political events under the guise of protecting protesters from right-wing counter-protesters, as the gun club has recently been tied to anti-ICE violence. Sound like the real happy fun group. Tell me again how all the radical violent extremism is over on the right, because I won't believe you when things like this are being celebrated on college campuses. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including the latest with the James Comey indictment. Lars Larson will be unleashed, and then your chance to win fantabulous prizes during our Good News giveaway. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.